of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome to the work session here, March 6th, 2023, the 9:30 a.m., a couple minutes late. I ask Trustee Pell to call the roll.
Scott Harwitz,
I
President.
am here.
Wim Pell, Secretary Treasurer, is here. Edward J. Warner.
Present.
Ann Walker.
Here.
And Wim Parrish is going to be absent
He's
tonight.
absent today. Thank you very much. Nice to see everybody here today. Looks like we got a pretty busy work session, so we'll jump right into this. I see we have a discussion here with Trustee Warner.
Correct. We're going to bring up with James, our environmental analyst, boat lifts and potential regulations. I've looked around the town, and there's quite a few areas where boat lifts are not permitted, but there are presently some boat lifts there. And there are other parts of the town where they are presently permitted, and I think they're doing a good job. I started on this process with Martha Reichert and Sean, our other attorney. I plan on working with Mark McRedmond, our new attorney, on hopefully drafting legislation to legalize some of these, or legalize these boat lifts in the remaining part of the town. Working with some of the contractors that install them and talking to some of the boat owners, it's a lot of the boats, or most of the boats that are on boat lifts are usually not painted with anti-fouling paint, which is a good thing for the environment. So it does have some positive environmental aspects, along with keeping a vessel safe during a storm. These boat lifts allow a secure mooring for during times of storms. One of the big issues years ago with the original boat lifts, that they were very cumbersome and they lifted the boat up very high, and it caused, aesthetically it wasn't very nice with neighbors looking at neighbors' boats. So I'm asking some of the local contractors to furnish us with some of the updated boat lift specifications so that we can look them over. So, James, would you like to give any more?
You guys reviewed this last week, last work session, and
Yeah.
were asked to look at it and
Yep.
have any comments for it. Otherwise, there's a proposal, so I don't know what you guys want to do with it.
I mean,
It's going to be a whole public hearing
Yeah,
process.
yeah.
Schedule a public hearing.
But I want to just give an overview, so if anybody has any of the other board members or anybody has any questions. But I'd really like to move it into the public hearing process, so that maybe we could, legalize and adopt these boat lifts.
I mean, I think we're going to have to take a look at the creeks and areas where they were not permitted and see, like what the rationale was relative to that, and then I think go piece by piece and figure it
Yeah.
out from that perspective, just to make sure that we don't create some unforeseen, unintended consequence somewhere along the way. In areas where it makes sense, that makes sense. But let's continue to look at this as it evolves, and then obviously it'll go through the public hearing process.
Do you want to give it another meeting to discuss it amongst ourselves?
I would, and
Okay.
I think we should,
Okay.
yeah, I would give it another
All right,
meeting to
I'm fine
discuss
with
it
it.
amongst ourselves and take a look at,
All
some
right.
of the
Does-
designs.
Does it need to be a phased approach where we do it like sort of geographical area by, like water body by water body, or?
We already allow it in Mauritius Bay and areas up in the western part of the town because the water is much shallower up there. And we didn't permit docks there, so it would allow the owners of these vessels to have a safe mooring during storms, so the boats weren't bouncing on the bottom. And there are quite a few areas throughout the town where either they've been permitted or put in illegally, and that's where I really want to, dig down and look if it's something that we could approve, so or work with and do. That's why I think having in a public hearing on it, bringing some of the owners and some of the contractors and some of the, the people that work with these, apparatuses in for discussion. I know the newer ones, really, they're not as cumbersome and they're not as, visually negative as the old ones are, so that's why.
Plus, you want something all uniform.
Yes.
Well, there should have been enforcement on the things that were done illegally,
well,
obviously.
Yeah.
But that's, and some of them were permitted by our board in areas that were, this is years ago,
Years ago.
so I want to really clean up what's there.
Right.
So,
I think that makes sense still geographically to go area by area, which I think is what the board wanted to do initially, and in areas where, you could take a different look at it based on the new types of products that are available to alleviate the problem where, that may make sense, but in other areas it still may not. So I don't know if a broad brush wouldn't create unintended consequences versus taking a look at the various aspects of the water bodies and making a
All right.
determination. I mean, you don't want to create something that then makes another problem that we got to figure out how to unwind.
no.
So-
So what I'll do is I'll take a specific area, part of the town, work with James, and, come up with a public hearing for that specific area, and we'll work into that.
I think that what would be a good template to utilize for something like this is a similar template to where pier lines were increased. Because
Yeah.
when we increased pier lines, we looked at specific areas
Okay.
from here to here, and then we did, a lot of the homework on that to make the determination if that made sense versus, creating some
Yep.
other problem. I think if we follow that same methodology, it may be easier, I don't know.
So I'll take
fine
the
with
town as it is now, where it's permitted, and overlay in small areas where I think it would be the most appropriate to have the discussion on.
If you look at the list
Yep.
in the blue book, there's areas where it says they're not permitted, correct? There's a list of, we don't allow it in these creeks. So I think if you go
Yep.
creek by creek, and then you do, that analysis to say, all right, look, this is what the regulations said back then for this area.
Yep.
Let's see where there would be a problem if we took this type of a lift and put it here, here, or here.
Yeah.
I really think that would be
Okay.
just an easier way to.
All right.
Yeah.
I-
Because you don't want them on some areas like on open bay.
No, why don't I choose several areas, and then I'll present it
Yeah.
to the board, and then if we're
No,
good with
I
it,
would
we'll
walk-
put it
I
in a
would walk
public
that
hearing.
You know,
I-
do one
okay.
west and one east, out by
Yep.
Saigon.
I
Okay.
would walk that way, and then
Yep.
that way, the board can look at it up on a screen, you could do an overlay, you could kind of get the measurements, and you can make determinations, and I think there's rhyme and reason to the decision, and then you end up with unintended consequences, unfortunately, with
No.
things that you do. You could maybe minimize that by looking at that way, but it's a good project.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, buddy. Trustee Pell, you have a discussion here as well.
Yes, is Kevin here yet?
Negative.
No, so
No,
we'll
Kevin.
skip over this and go to,
And Welker.
yeah.
Okay. I would like to present the Peconic Estuary Partnership with Joyce Novak and Valerie Vergana doing a presentation on river herring and alewives.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the invitation, Anne, and thank you so much for having me at this work session, everyone. So this is based off of a presentation that I did at Uber Geek Brewery for their Geek Talk series, only this is a slightly shorter and less silly version of that. It's called The Real Alewives of the Peconic, loosely based off of the Real Housewives series and focusing on alewives, which is a type of river herring that we have here in the Peconics. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Peconic Estuary Partnership, but just to do a brief introduction on us once again, we're a national estuary program authorized by Section 320 of the Clean Water Act under the EPA. And we work as a place-based program to protect and conserve the Peconic Estuary and watershed. As with all of the Real Housewives series, the location is very important. We're here in the Peconic Estuary. It's a very unique place. We have, of course, all the Peconic bays make up the estuary. That's where the freshwater and the saltwater mixes. And all of the freshwater from our watershed and that surrounding land area is included in our protected area. So, I have never seen this show before. Just for sake of this title, my friend who's a big fan went over some themes with me. So we'll be focusing on procreation, conflict, chaos, and redemption. And those are some Real Housewives actually fishing. Okay, so our main character is the alewife. Some characteristics of this fish, they grow up to 12 inches in size. They reach their sexual maturity at 3 to 5 years. Their lifespan can be up to 8 to 10 years. They have a distinct marking right behind their gills, and they're generally, if you're looking at them from above, like a silver fish. And getting a little bit more into the alewife, they're a type of diadromous fish. This means that they are through running. They migrate between salt and fresh water. Specifically, river herring, alewife, and blueback herring are anadromous. That means that they spend most of their life at sea and they migrate to fresh water to spawn. And the two largest alewife spawning runs on Long Island are actually the Peconic River as well as Alewife Creek, so right here in Southampton. And another fish that we focus on during our survey work is the American eel. And that's another type of diadromous fish, but it's actually catadromous, which is the opposite. It spends most of its life in freshwater, and it migrates out to saltwater to spawn. They actually all go to one place in the Atlantic Ocean called the Sargasso Sea, and they spawn, and that starts the life cycle for the next generation. So why they're important? They connect our oceans, rivers, and lakes, and they provide nutrient cycling. So they provide food for commercial fishing species out in the ocean. Once they're moving into the estuary, they're food for things like otter species, and then once they're in, the rivers, going up to the freshwater to spawn, a lot of our bird species prey upon the fish as well as their eggs. So during their life cycle for procreation, and once again, I just imagine this is a theme in Real Housewives. During the spring, alewife migrate to the coast, and they head towards our estuaries, and this is all dependent on the temperature of the water. So for Long Island, that spawning season is generally early March to mid-May, so we're just about to start their spawning season. And they tend to return to the same freshwater bodies each year. Through tagging, we can see they actually return to the same water bodies, even when we have, or similar organizations have worked to, cart fish to other water bodies to bring up the populations there. They sometimes return back to the original freshwater body that they had originally migrated to. So some more about the diadromous fish spawning and life cycle. The eggs, larvae, and juvenile alewives do remain in freshwater and the estuary for the first few months of their life. Towards the end of their juvenile period, they migrate towards the marine environment. And then after reaching sexual maturity, they return to freshwater to spawn each year. So you can see it starts with the egg, larva, juvenile, and then subadult, and goes around in this circle. And then once they reach sexual maturity, that circle on the right side, where they are, out in the marine environment, migrating to the estuary, spawning in the freshwater, and then returning back to sea to start the process all over the next year. So some conflicts that we have, and there are a lot of conflicts in Real Housewives, I've been told. So here the threat is human impact. So during the late 1800s and early 1900s, dams were built on nearly all of Long Island's freshwater bodies, and I'm sure you're all familiar with this. Things like grist mills, cranberry bogs, property line demarcations, as well as building roads, have set up barriers for migration for these fish. And these are the alewives accusing us of messing up their migration. And you can see that declining populations have been a big issue for river herring here on Long Island. So redemption, River Herring Survey and Diadromous Fish Work Group. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with this group. In 2006, the Long Island Volunteer River Herring Survey began, and this is one of the longest running citizen science programs that we have here on Long Island. And the purpose was to identify remnant spawning routes that still existed here on Long Island, and to help encourage and make those trips a little bit easier for the alewife. In 2008, the Long Island Diadromous Fish Work Group was formed with a mission to advance fish passage and do things like dam removal projects, culvert corrections, fish passages over dams, things of that nature. So to really identify where fish are trying to travel upstream and make that easier for them. So some river connectivity projects. If you are all familiar with Seatuck Environmental Association, they have a really great river connectivity map that we work on with them, and it shows where these remnant runs have been identified, whether or not there are obstructions on those paths, and if a fish passage project has been implemented there. So one of the major ones that we work at here at PEP is the Peconic River. So we have 6 dams along the Peconic River and tributaries, and we've been working over the past, since around 2010 was the first project that got implemented to help remove these obstructions. The goal is to open up 300 acres of spawning habitat along this river system. So you see all the way on the right, we have Grangeable. In 2010, a permanent structure was put in as a nature-like fish passage at that location. A little bit more upstream, where you have that red dot, would be Upper Mills. We are currently working on a fish passage project there. We have permits, and we are looking for additional funding to continue that project. The pink square is Forge Road. So that is recently completed fish passage project in Brookhaven. If you want to go check that out, it's really, really amazing looking. Next, we have Edwards Avenue. In 2016, the fish passage project was created there. But as you can see, just logically, obviously Forge Road and Edwards Avenue are not going to be super productive until we have Upper Mills created, so the fish can get past that barrier. And then at Connecticut Avenue, there is one last barrier, and that will be tackled after we have Upper Mills completed. But more in line with Southampton, we have, of course, Woodhull Fish Passage, or the Byron Young Fish Passage at Woodhull Dam. And thanks to you all, we were able to get that project permitted and constructed. It got finished up at the end of last spring, so this is going to be the first year that we actually see fish travel through this fish passage, which is going to be really amazing. Just some more pictures of this project. There we have Byron and our water quality program manager, Sarah Cernadas Martin, measuring some fish. The project is really beautiful looking, and it's right across the street from our office at the Suffolk County Riverhead Center. So you can come give us a call and we can show you this project if you'd like. And we should, in the next couple weeks, have an unveiling to start the season and honor Byron, of course, as well. And this opened up 95 acres of prime spawning habitat into that cranberry bog and Wildwood Lake. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get this to play, but I just have a little video of these river herring at Woodhull Dam. So before they were able to pass that barrier, just kind of like swarming, and they would end up spawning below the dam, which isn't ideal because it has, slightly higher salinity that they would prefer. They prefer really like calm waters that are fresh water. So it's not an ideal spawning habitat, but it just shows how tenacious they are, that they don't give up and they keep trying to spawn even with these obstructions. So this is kind of what you'll see if you go to Woodhull. I imagine they'll still kind of be swarming before they get up that fish passage.
So cool.
Yeah, right? Okay, you can move on. And of course, this is our reality TV at PEP, watching these fish go about their lives. Okay. Okay, so now how you can get involved, and I really hope that you all do. We have our 2023 River Herring and Eel Survey that just got launched. This is in tandem with Seatuck Environmental Association, Long Island Sound Studies, South Shore Estuary Reserve, and some partner nonprofits such as Peconic Baykeeper. Pete Topping is a great help during this project. So I'm not sure if you're all familiar with the Survey 123 mobile app. It's a way that you can report sightings of these alewives, and we have specifically one campaign for the 2023 River Herring and Eel Survey, so everything that you report goes towards this one file where we can see where fish are being located, and it's a really excellent way to identify those remnant spawning runs and get kind of an estimate of how many fish are traveling upstream during the season. So you can access this app on your phone, Survey 123, or you can access it on a web page, through the Seatuck Environmental Association webpage, or even just, by Googling it, you can access that there. And we just have some housewives out doing their survey work or whatever they do. Okay, so I wanted to go over some locations that you all may.
Just one thing.
Oh, sure.
Didn't mean to interrupt you. Maybe you should send that to our office and they can put it on
Yes.
our webpage.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
when people look up on our webpage, they can go right to that.
Yes, perfect. I can send, we recently had a Zoom training for this, so I'll send you the YouTube link for that, as well as the Survey 123 link too.
Okay, Lisa, take care of that.
Okay, great, and thank you. So we have Hubbard County Park, and there is actually a small fish passage project here, which I have not been able to check out just yet. And Joyce, this was in 2019 this was constructed, or 2018?
Yeah, Southern County did this.
Yeah. So excited to see how productive this is this year, but yep, that's a relatively close location that you all can survey. Alewife Creek, as I said, is one of the two most productive alewife spawning runs that we have here on Long Island. So this is a place where if you go at the right time, you can usually see some fish, which is encouraging, because if you're out there doing the survey work at streams where we're not sure if there are fish, it can be like a little bit disheartening. So if you need to see some fish, you can go over to Alewife Creek. And there is a culvert where you can usually see them circling before they cross over the road there. And Pete Topping is also a really good person to ask about this location. We'll be doing a alewife walk with Peconic Baykeeper on April 14th, if anybody wants to come to that. It'll be at this location. We usually park at Emma Rose Elliston Park and do a little walk around Alewife Creek and then up to the culvert to see some fish. And during my presentation at Uber Geek, I wore this crocheted alewife hat that my sister made for me, and I forgot it today. Apologies, Anne. So I'll wear it at this event if you guys want to come. Next, we have Halsey Neck Lane in Southampton Village. And once again, there is like a culvert that you can make observations at this location. We have Mecox Bay. I know that you said you're opening it up today. This is another location where we do ask people to go out and check out some alewives. I'm not sure how productive it is. Have you ever seen any alewives there?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, excellent.
I've
Yeah.
seen millions of little ones in the wintertime that didn't get out because the inlet wasn't opened in time.
Right.
That froze in the ice, so it's, at times, it could be a substantial run in there.
Yeah.
And we're actually looking to possibly get a grant to put a fish passage into Mill Pond, which
Yeah.
would be really huge, because that's where they want to be, and it has impaired water quality. So putting the fish in there, filtering the fish,
Yeah.
so we'd be accomplishing a couple of different things in there. So
Yeah.
and then that would give us more stature to keep that inlet open to the Atlantic, so that they can go back to the Atlantic and grow up.
Right, exactly. That's really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's wonderful, and I'd love to talk to you more about that too, and introduce that to the Diogenes Fish Work Group. I'm sure they'd be really happy to hear about
That'd be
that.
good.
Okay, great. Okay, so those are the end of the locations that you can survey where we know that alewives are present, but we definitely always encourage you to go to any type of stream that has an outlet to the estuary or even to the Atlantic Ocean, and just we usually ask that you sit there for like 15 minutes. You can take some pictures. Even if you don't see fish, that's data to report. And you can type in wherever you are. It may not be one of those pre-filled locations, but you can type in a location to do active reporting for that site.
Where a really good place to view the alewives is when they
Yeah.
come in Shinnecock Bay and the canal is running. When the canal shuts off,
Yeah.
They shut the locks, the fish will group up there so they can go back. And I've seen, millions and millions of fish in there.
Yeah.
So you can actually go down there and actually see them right in the water.
Is it like a feeding frenzy there
No,
at
it's,
that point?
that's, at that point, usually the seals press them in,
Okay.
and as soon as the locks open, they go through to the Peconics and up the Peconic River.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because at Woodhull, that's usually a good place for birding, because
Yes.
there are just a bunch of ospreys and egrets circling around. But yeah, that's very interesting. I'll add that to the list as well.
Yep.
And yep, I'll send over the YouTube link as well as the Survey 123 link. But any questions at all on that?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All you do.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
for your
you.
Thank
presentation.
you.
Thank you.
So much. Thank you to both of you for being here. Awesome.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Send that link off.
We'll put it on our website.
Absolutely. Thank you. Trustee Pell, you want to hold your
Yeah, I
discussion?
gotta hold this off until these people show
Yeah,
up.
no worries, no worries. That being said, we'll go to the general permit applications for determination, application review. I have First Coastal, Howard Goldstein, 5 Indian Run Road in East Quogue.
Oh, yeah.
And I see we have Aram here.
Bill and Max away. Bill and Max away.
Is he?
Said be nice to him.
Good morning. Aram Tertuni and First Coastal Corporation, West Hampton Beach, New York, on behalf of the applicant, Howard Goldstein.
Hey, Aaron, you wanna move, either
Oh,
come up
there we
here
go.
or take that down there?
You can sign in over here.
Because she was there.
Thank you.
What are you doing this morning? That
Good,
was a
how are
pretty
you?
interesting presentation. Thanks for bringing that forward.
Of course. Can always
Mr.
use
Max away
extra-
this weekend, he told me.
Yep,
can always-
something about somebody turning 60.
Who's that?
Friend of his.
60 is like the new 40, right?
Exactly right.
You heard it here first, folks. All right.
Okay.
When you're ready?
Yep.
So we've got,
So this is it's on Carter's Creek in East Quogue, Indian Run. And we had sea level mapping do a hydrographic survey. As you can see, the creek is a total of 167 feet wide at this location. There are docks on the opposite side, and we placed this in an area that we think is compatible with what's around it, and we stayed within the 1/3 distance across, the third, a third, and a third that is usually laid out for these types of creek situations. We get a water depth of about 2.3 feet, so we're not 2.5, but we're
pretty darn close. So
And this is,
Yeah.
yeah. So, so we, I think that we meet in, if not in the letter, certainly the spirit of the Blue Book regs.
You have chalks? It's your own.
Yeah, I'm just looking at
It's a
the
tiny
last
chalk.
one.
That's a very small amount of chalk you would need.
Yeah.
right?
But that would work really well in there because it's, doesn't have much wave fetch and
Right.
Sorry.
there's no submerged aquatic vegetation
No,
or
there's not.
eelgrass. So it's not gonna really interfere.
We dig it out when we can. We try and
Yep.
maintain the brush jetties. The maintenance crew does a great job trying to maintain the brush jetties. It's been a lot of dynamic, wave action in that area at Carter Creek lately. There's a big high tide, a lot going on there.
If
The
you're gonna
mouth
put
of the-
chalks, you gotta redo the poles. So the boards go across to hold
I
it.
mean, he's only off by like,
An inch or two.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the board itself will probably eat up that amount. So,
Well, then with the chalks, it'd be consistent with what we'd approved in the
Right.
past, so.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you gotta do a very small chalk.
Yeah, but he has to move the poles because you can't chalk one side. Gotta have a pole on either side.
You gotta have 4 poles in order to have
Yeah.
the chalk, the wood go across underneath the dock.
Okay, so just, okay, no problem, we can do that.
4 more mooring piles, and then have the chocks support the dock.
Right. I'm marking this up right now.
So just,
We need stamp plans anyway, so. you
right,
get-
so when you do the stamp plans, just make those adjustments and then adjust the cover sheet and then it meets.
And is the light all, the dock all light penetrating?
Yeah.
Decking?
So all I like penetrating, yep.
You go with that, Aaron?
I'm good with that.
I don't know if while he's here, if you wanna just,
Do parishes?
yeah, let's do parishes while you're
Oh, thank you.
here.
6 Holly Realty LLC?
So I got 6 Holly right here. Want to remove the remains of an old dock and construct a new 4x46 fixed dock with davit, a 3x12 ramp, and a 6x16 float. Couple of 8-inch piles for securing, and a couple more, right?
Yeah, we're cleaning up this site. This has actually a very long permit history. It goes back to the, definitely the 60s. It might even be before that. And I think a couple of things morphed over time. And so the property was recently purchased, and the owner wanted to get it cleaned up. There's a bunch of CCA piles in there that we're going to remove. And this just is a much cleaner operation. And you know, we've got great water depth because we're on Fish Creek. So I'm pretty,
Back to the 60s is only been 40 years.
Yeah.
okay then.
James, you look at this in the Blue Book, I know Trustee Parrish is not here, so we're gonna try and help, facilitate good process here, so I'll defer to James for a moment.
Is this a right-of-way easement, or?
No, it's
It's
property. It's
Okay,
a,
because I know we had multiple applications that we had to deal with.
Yeah.
So, and it does conform to the 1/3, 1/3, because I know that was
Yeah.
another
Right.
question
yes.
on this creek.
It also conforms to the 10 feet property lines because it's a small sliver,
Right.
but
Okay.
it's in that.
So this one here was, upon analysis, was Blue Book compliant?
It appears so.
Yeah. Okay, so Trustee Parrish isn't here, but we're trying to
Well, I appreciate you hearing that.
keep things
We
moving.
do need stamp plans.
Right.
Right.
Right, so would you say that pending acceptable stamp plans, this would meet all the Blue Book regulations for the standards that we request, James?
It appears so.
Okay. What do you think, board?
I think it's an approvable
Do that.
application.
Right, so let's advance that pending the stamp plans.
Very good.
Okay,
Thank
sir.
you.
The next one is Bill's too, and it's First Coastal.
Yeah, okay, so will you have also,
528
I see that Michael and Mary
Prince Savage.
Prince Savage in West Hampton Beach at 528 Dune Road.
All right.
Is this part of the string of Living Shorelines properties? here?
No, this is, those are in the 600s. So this is a fixed dock with stairs at the end. It is longer than the 100-foot identified in the Blue Book, but if you look on the plan that we provided, we kept in line with docks that are immediately adjacent to the property.
Okay, but we're not complying with Blue Book as of right now, right, Aaron?
That's correct.
Right.
It's 50 feet, 48 feet longer than it should be.
Right.
Yeah, so,
What's the distance from mean high water?
It's 148 feet.
Oh, from mean high water.
Yes.
Oh,
so, this,
So we need
this
to
doesn't
bring that back.
have appreciable water depth.
No,
This
it
is-
does not.
Yeah.
This one, I think we're gonna have to hold Aaron with Trustee Parrish to come and do some more work
Okay.
on. Because this one, you got a couple of things that are out of spec, it's not as
No, it's not, no,
It's
it's not.
cut and dry.
No, it's
Yeah,
not cut
trying
and
to-
dry. Yeah.
So this one, I think we gotta do more work on, so let's put this one on hold, because you got the depth issue, you got a pier length issue, so this one's gotta,
And is it off the extended property line also?
Yeah, we're good on
We're
that.
gonna,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, I don't know what this measurement is here,
Yeah.
but it doesn't say. but
Just
It
there's-
making
shows
sure.
15 feet.
Okay, so that meets, but we still got problems with this other
With the
stuff, so
length
let's.
of it, yeah.
So this is just a catwalk.
Correct.
So the Blue Book
So-
says that it would be 25 feet. It would bring it back to 25 feet. Shallow.
Because what was the intention on the owner's part for use of it?
Well, the use is, for access to the water, and they've got a set of stairs at the end, that's all they can get, they can't get the flow here, so that's
Right.
Yeah.
what they're
So,
going with.
given the distance, and.
Well, at 25 feet, they're in half a foot, not even half a foot of water. So, I mean, that really doesn't do anything
Yeah, this
for you.
whole thing, yeah, this is a problematic spot.
Yeah, it's shallow here, and
It's
that's why
shallow.
these other docks are so long.
Right.
They really don't go into much deeper water.
Well, you get to about almost a foot and a half, right there at the dotted line. It's like 1.4. Which is, it's, 3 times, more than 3 times what it is, back at 25 feet.
On a
Really?
bigger picture
Mhm.
along this area, how many other docks are here? You show 3 right now.
Well,
Are there 5, 6, 10?
There's a bunch.
So would it be something that we would look maybe like we did
To increase the
over in
pyramid.
Onik, along that shoreline where you get to a certain point and it would be, allowing the boats or a boat to be.
That's for the
You
board
know,
to look at and then go through the
Yeah,
same
so
protocol.
I think, I think we'd need that whole strip to be able to look at it and look at the water depths along there, see if it would be, productive for us to change the pier line or to pull the docks back. So that's,
All right, well, I can,
We've been
I
doing this-
can,
Yeah.
look at an aerial photo and do what, the existing pier lines are for,
yeah, I
some
mean, it
distance
looks like
east
the
and
docks
west.
are already longer than they should be there. That was probably prior to us initiating the dock.
Yeah, I don't know how long those have been there.
Yeah, me either, so,
But we have engaged in this,
exercise.
exercise in the past, and we had a protocol that we followed, and I think we just need to employ the same,
Yeah, get the information.
right?
see-
Get the
see-
information,
yeah.
look at it, make a determination, and
So
shut.
it's helpful, I'm sorry, it's helpful to have the aerial and then the length of the docks that are presently there, right?
And
Yeah.
the water
And the water
depths.
depths, and the water depths, and see what makes sense, rhyme and
Yeah.
reason wise.
Because the
Like that.
south side of Merchants Bay, there's a lot of shallow water there.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
But you're not
Really
gonna,
shallow.
and one thing, you're not gonna really run into any eelgrass beds there, because historically, the eelgrass beds were much further out in the bay.
Yeah, they are.
That I know personally.
So for today's exercise, this has to go on hold pending
Yeah.
further board, review and,
So I took some notes here, and we'll put some information together and bring it back to the work session.
Sounds good.
That's
Okay.
great. You have another one?
you do actually, while you're sitting there, we'll
Thank
knock
you.
this out.
541 Main Street, Cleo.
Oh, yeah, okay. So, I think I resolved this. This was a situation where the board got a letter from the neighbor,
Neighbor.
Mr. Warren St. John, and there was some conflict with the previous property owner over this right-of-way. Do we have that pulled up, James?
Did you look at any paperwork on this, Mark?
I'll have to see it again here.
You
I probably
received the
did.
email, the,
Because this was a question like you're talking about, it was an easement situation.
Yes.
I believe,
Right.
Right, access and,
Well, yeah, so we're redoing
I
the
did,
bulkhead,
yeah.
and there's a right-of-way that crosses over it. And the neighbor was concerned that elevating the bulkhead where his right-of-way crosses would tend to impede his access. So we came up with, well, we think, yeah, zoom right in there, please.
Because there was previous litigation on this, I
Yes,
think,
yeah,
right?
evidently the previous property owner to my client and Mr. St. John didn't get along so well. What we came up with, and I gotta give Billy Mack credit, is his idea, we're just gonna move the return to the north side of the right-of-way. So just to take it completely out of the right-of-way. And I called Mr. St. John this morning, and I sent him a revised drawing, which I don't have to give to you since we just kind of put
Okay.
it together. And he wanted to look at it,
Right.
but his initial reaction was, if it doesn't change the situation that's there right now, he doesn't see how he would object.
So would it go along sort of, sorry, the
It would be
the
on
wood
this-
wall?
Yeah, just right
Ish?
there.
Okay.
so for today's exercise, we'll leave this on hold, obviously, pending the outcome of that. Trustee Parish will be back.
Right,
And
and
then-
we'll put together a revised drawing and
Okay.
with a stamp.
With a written response from the,
Well, I can't guarantee he's gonna write back.
Right. No, I
I
get
did send it to him, though.
it would be nice to have it
Well-
as testimony from hearing to put into the,
I would love it, but I,
Permit.
I can't compel that.
It would be helpful, exactly, it would be helpful. But for today's exercise, we're gonna hold it pending more information, obviously, because it's not ready to go.
Yeah, I read the easement on this, but I want to take a close look at the whole package.
It'll be on hold to give you that, and then he's done, what he can, Hiram's done what he could do. And like you said, you can't compel somebody to respond, but we're not ready to move beyond this right now, so on hold.
That's right.
Okay, and we'll get you the revised drawings, and hopefully we'll hear from Mr. St. John as well.
Okay.
Right.
So amazing that Trustee Parish is absent today, but his list got done most
Yeah.
efficiently.
Well, I thank you
Okay.
for taking me out of order, and
Yeah. Trying to be efficient.
we
Aaron. Trying to be efficient, Aaron.
good time today. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Take care. Have a good
So
you.
let's go back on course here. Land use. We got Angry Chicken Holdings LLC,
It's an interesting name.
5 Fairhoaks. Is that like a very spicy chicken sandwich or something? I mean,
Yes, I guess so, yes. It's angry.
Yeah, I don't want to eat anything that has an angry. I don't eat anything angry.
Not at all.
Maybe it's a new video game.
Yeah. So you got 5 Fair Oaks. Alright.
Yes,
Remove existing dock facility, construct a new one. 4x55 open grade catwalk proposed with access stairs leading to a 3x15 ramp, which is going to be seasonal. A 6x20 float, also seasonal in a T configuration. Catwalk is proposed to be elevated 4 foot over wetlands, then lowered to 26 over MHW at the mean low water mark. The catwalk is proposed to be supported by 8 4x4 posts. The landward end supported by 8 8-inch diameter piles at the seaward end. The float is proposed to be supported by 4 8-inch diameter piles and chock 24 off the bottom. And there will be no chemically treated lumber utilized in the project whatsoever,
correct.
right? Okay. James?
I got stamp plans, it meets the water depth at 2.9.
Meeting the Blue Book regulations? You want to look at any of
You
this?
said it was chalk, but it's at 2.9, so.
Well, there's.
It gets deep very quickly there.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like
a-
deep on one side, but then
Yeah.
on the other side it's
It's
not,
shallow.
so.
You can't angle the dock to get all the deep water.
Stone Creek area?
Yes.
I mean, they might be able to do an L shape to get it off that corner of the shallow area.
Yeah, I mean, if you move it as an L-shaped dock, then you would need the chalking, and it would be,
Might be better.
Because you got
Form.
2.9 over here on the.
And
Can you
then
do an over, can you do an overhead shot on this?
What was the rationale for the T versus the L? Did you have some, or was it not a,
Well, just, it's a reconstruction of an existing dock,
so you were trying to?
so trying to mimic what was there previously, and, more stable design for the ramp coming off would be
Gotcha.
a T.
Right, you were looking for stability of hitting the center point of that flow
Correct.
instead
Yeah.
of tweaking
Yes.
off that
I
direction.
don't see it.
Yeah,
I
it's-
understand.
And it might be safer to chalk it anyway, because it's pretty close there on the landward end.
okay.
I mean, it's not gonna harm
Okay.
anything.
No, it's not.
It's not gonna harm anything,
No,
so it's,
We're just trying to make it easier.
I understand what you're saying on the stability side, I get it, you're trying to maintain consistency on what you had, I get it. you know.
Yes.
We don't want to get the chicken angry.
No, I don't want,
It's already angry.
you know.
Must be the paperwork.
That chicken on a bun. Good.
So, do we need an advisory letter on this one? Because
No,
Main
because,
High Water is
no.
just,
No, because you're in the village. You don't
You're in the
advise.
village.
You're okay.
oh,
You're okay.
Yeah.
We're just dealing with our stuff. You're good, Ed.
okay.
It's gotta touch some point of land where it's not water, so.
You're good.
And is there a bulkhead there?
No.
No. That's just. a
No, it's just,
I think for what he's
lawn. I mean,
asking for,
Yeah,
you know,
it's just
yeah,
wetlands.
yep.
I think he's good.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's gotta touch some dry land to get off the dock.
Makes sense.
All right,
Thank you.
We're gonna advance that, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Stamp
Are you,
plans?
that's all you have here today?
Yes, I believe so.
With a light?
Yep, thank you, guys.
See you, buddy.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you very much. Shinbone Bay LLC, Interscience, 48 Shinnecock Road. And here he is, Mr. Jim Walker.
Hey, Jim.
All right, this is maintenance dredging of an existing boat slip. And you guys have reviewed this project site before for bulkhead replacement. We pulled the dredging out of the original project because it was taking too long. The bulkhead project is almost done, and we're applying to the trustees for a new permit. So you have 2 applications in for this one guy. But the reason why we put the dredging off is because it takes so long to get dredging permits.
Right, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I'm fine, you gotta do it, I'm fine with it. Thank you for, doing the paperwork, and thank you. It's fine, it's okay.
Okay.
All
Now
right?
you can talk about baseball.
I'm fine. It's gonna advance, James.
4 o'clock.
Thank you.
Ethan's on TV. I will
Advance.
sign in and leave quickly.
Yes, because you gotta
Unless you
you
have
gotta watch
anything
baseball
else.
at 4.
I have another one if you
Yeah,
want it.
yeah, why don't we do that? Let's, since this one was quick, let's give you
A second one.
Yep.
289 Noyak Road.
The other one's also quick. This is Sabrina's project. She's been before the board several times. Mr. Pell asked them to shorten the dock, and she did. So that's what you need to know. The project's ready for advancement, and we are in the process of getting the engineered plans finished. So you can,
How much was it dialed back to?
you're asking a hard question.
I'm sorry.
Dialed
Because I
back
know it was pretty long
to
originally.
60 feet from mean high water, and I presume it was 100 feet prior. And so we're going back 40 feet.
Yeah, because there's no water. And you're gonna put a step there or a ladder or something.
Yeah.
I believe it's 40 feet shorter.
Yeah.
James, you did an analysis of this?
Yep.
Met the board's objectives?
That's what you guys requested, and.
It's all flow through.
Happened. We just need the stamp.
Stamp plans.
Okay.
Good, Jim?
All good.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you,
Take
Jim.
it easy.
Okay,
Talk to you soon.
okay. Trustee Pell, you have,
I have 91 Fowler Lane LLC. Lang Associate. Come on up.
good morning.
Morning.
Taylor Stern from V. Lang Associates for the applicant.
You sign in.
I think this one will be pretty quick too,
Maybe.
Denied. That was very quick.
if I'm lucky. Yeah.
This is a fixed dock over Phyllis Pond. It's behind Fowler's Farm, the little pond back there. It's 87 feet long with a ramp pathway support pylons. The dock will be comprised of untreated hardwood decking with 40.6% open decking and closed DEC permit. I like to use flow through on that instead of wood.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't involved with the design.
Yeah.
It was the
The
rain.
reason I want to use, because the tide does come up in there, where the pond fills up,
Okay.
and I want to make sure that,
You think that'd be
That-
okay?
Well, I mean, okay, and I'll relay it to the.
Because that's what I mean, you gotta bring it back to your.
Yeah, that pond, isn't that pond fresh water? When I tested
yeah,
and I didn't get
it's
any.
fresh water, but it fills up
It fills up with rain and stuff, or?
rain,
Okay.
and if Mecox says it opens soon, it all drains back into
I see.
Mecox, slowly.
So it is a tidal pond if it does drain back.
Yeah,
Do you get the surge in there? You get like a-
No.
No.
just a lot of rain.
Okay, yeah, I'll pass that on and, we'll see what happens.
What's the wetlands fringe around where the dock goes over? Is it extensive wetlands or?
You want to put a picture up there? It's pretty heavy
You know, it
crowd.
was flagged a number of years ago. It's not tremendous, but
No.
there's definitely a pretty substantial fringe
So
there.
putting life penetrating decking would help
Yes.
maintain the
What's
vegetation
there?
under and around the dock.
Because I'm just asking about, or looking at the 87 feet. Where is most of that 87 feet? Like, how long
It's
does the
going over,
dock-
it's going over there.
It's
over
over the wetlands?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's why the flow through, I think, would be a lot better than the wood.
the wood is spaced,
You still gets more light out with the flow through.
Yeah.
yeah,
And then
Lot
when-
more.
yeah, okay.
So the dock itself out into the water is how long? 15 feet or so? Do you
Yeah.
have?
I have the site plans here.
I can't
James.
I can't read that, James.
No, it's not very long.
You know,
It's very soft in the edges.
You should have a copy in the.
It's maybe
Small
maybe a
folder.
third of it is over water.
Let's see, you have here?
because I'm just looking at the
It's in
two.
the small folder on your.
So,
I'm just looking
I
at
was
the
looking up there.
2, 3 other docks on that pond and just making sure that
Trying to get consistent.
Yeah.
James, do
Right,
you need a
it's
Blue Book
not-
test?
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's not a loading dock, so there's no water depth required.
No,
Yeah, but what is the depth of water that is around the dock between the shore and the outer terminus? Is it the same all the way out, or does it?
I think in the middle it gets deeper. The edges, when I went down
Yeah,
to
the end
look,
of the dock
Provide
is about
water depth.
2 feet at high tide, maybe a foot.
when it's up.
at low
The
tide.
average-
It's not really tidal.
No, it's
Yeah.
the average tide. It's
Yeah,
the
I'm just
average.
reading, yeah, sorry, I was
Yeah.
reading the plans here. They do call it out as mean high and mean low water. Maybe that should read ordinary
Yeah,
high or
the
something like
average,
that.
average high tide.
Yeah.
Average tide should be.
So it'd be, James, would it be consistent with what the other docks are in there presently?
Uh,
That I didn't look at.
I think there's 2 other docks in there I saw.
3, there's one super
3.
short one, from what I see. I mean, I'm just.
And there's
looking
also a couple of
like
deck
it's-
blinds in there too, they have to be aware of.
Yeah, I mean,
This is the property.
yeah, it looks
Like, it's
similar to what
just-
that dock is.
I just want to make sure it's not like that's quite short in relation. I just didn't want it to be projecting too much out into the water body.
It's gonna be about 20 feet, so it's not very far out in that water body.
Is there a scale on that? So that we can determine that?
No, you have a ruler? You have a ruler here?
You want to pass down a hand? Here.
Sorry, no.
You don't have
I'm
scale
ill-
tape here?
I'm ill prepared, unfortunately.
I think when me and James looked at it before, I think it was like 15 feet.
James will give you a scale.
Thank you.
So it's like 25, right?
And it also could, it's only a top handrail. There's no middle.
When it goes out over the pond? Or through the vegetated shore?
For the vegetarian shoreline, and actually over to the pond. This, I wonder if we could cut this back. where it
That's what
goes
I'm
over the-
thinking, Bill.
I think that's a good idea, Ed.
I think we should, I mean, if it's 25 feet, we should cut it back to about 15 feet. I mean, that
Yeah.
would be, I mean, you're not gonna get a big boat in there,
No.
so. at
You're not gonna
15
get anything in
At
there.
15 feet, it looks like you have, if there's 2 feet of water at the end, you got about 1.5 foot of water,
Yeah.
which would be a kayak and a canoe access.
Yeah,
I agree, because then it's more consistent
Yeah.
with the other
and also you gotta
properties.
put a ladder, needs a
Oh,
ladder.
yeah,
Yeah.
that I expected.
So cut this, you can cut this back,
Yeah.
you know, three sections of the handrail.
Yeah, and it will stick out, Billy, because the way the shoreline is
Yeah.
configured, it's almost like a point there, so
Yeah.
the longer the dock is, the further it's gonna stick out.
Yeah.
You know, aesthetically, it look better short.
Okay, so something like 15 feet is what you like to see?
Yeah. Or 3 sections, so it looks balanced.
If you want to scale the property just to the southeast and see what that dock is.
As far
As-
as it, from
as
the
far
high
as-
tide, from the
Yeah.
high water mark seaward.
Yeah,
That would make
So
it a
just
good
draw
Yeah, it
project.
looks like there's, if, going by these plans where you have, you know, the mean low water, mean high water, I know that's not supposed to be tidal. It looks like there would be almost no water there if you go 3
Okay.
back at low tide. or
We're
what
just talking about the
is-
handrail, it's not the.
Oh, I
dock.
see, okay.
I thought we were talking
I
about the
thought we were talking about the dock.
dock length.
Yeah, I thought so too, that's,
Yeah.
maybe I was confused.
Well, what, you think we should make it shorter?
I think we should make it shorter, which should be consistent with the dock that's just east of
Okay.
that.
Actually, no, we could make it shorter and put a lower platform, like we did in the, over in Fowler's Creek.
You got a whole redesign
Jill's
coming.
Creek.
Yeah, it looks like it, this is.
Well, it makes it more practical for the property owner,
Yeah.
because if
Because that's what we
If it
did.
is tidal and it drops a lot, and the dock sticks 3 feet above.
Right, of course.
And then you gotta jump, if you drop it down, like step the outer part of it down a foot, then it's easier to get in and out of the kayak or.
Because over in Jules Creek, the next creek over to the east, those docks just go out with flow through.
Yeah, I was involved with that one too,
It's a-
the one that steps down.
Yeah,
at the
both
very
of
end.
them step
Yeah.
down. And actually, the one on the other side steps down with a ladder. I think that's a better design
There might
than
be some
this.
confusion about this, I mean, this is almost 3 feet of water difference. Did you think, does it really get that high in,
It
in the
can.
spring
It
or
can,
something there?
yeah, it can.
Okay.
Because we get it like,
Go down here before we open the inlet, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
if we get a lot of rain,
Sure,
or we,
yeah.
and then we get caught up with an inability to get a successful opening,
Opening.
then, you know, you end up with conditions
and
super
that
high.
takes like probably, I would say 3 or 4 days before you even see something draining there.
Right, yeah.
Because
not
it's only
directly
going through a
connected.
culvert and through the ground
Right.
to Jules.
Right now, if you go down there and the water's, say, 3 feet deep, when the inlet and the bay does drain out, it's gonna be over 30 inches drop.
Yeah,
Or maybe,
okay.
maybe almost 3 feet.
Substantial.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah. Okay,
Okay, that's
substantial.
good to know.
But it's very slow. It doesn't
Right, of
happen
course.
quick.
Yeah, it's got a lag time of probably a week or more.
But if that channel gets strained, if that channel gets
It's
stretched.
dredged.
Well, so maybe what I'll do is I'll go back and see how much we can scale it back, obviously, talk to
Yeah.
the
And-
applicant.
And dig out your thing, what you did over in Jules.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
that's a better dock and easy to maintain,
okay,
And more practical
more
access.
practical.
all right.
It's easy to keep clean.
And
You're
ladder.
back at the drawing board.
Yeah. You said it
Yeah,
was
that's
gonna
true.
be
It's not
easy.
really my drawing board. It's, I guess I have to send this to the Rayner Group and then
Yeah.
All right.
let them talk to the applicant, not me.
Okay.
That way I'm not yelled at.
We don't want that. We don't want that.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming
Thank
in.
you.
So now, trustee,
So we're gonna hold that one.
yeah, definitely,
Yes.
yeah, that's, he's
Okay.
got, so, yeah. That's the only one you have with us, right?
That's it.
Yes, thank you,
One
thank
and
you,
done.
thank you.
Now, Reason to Smile LLC, 183 Shore Road. Jeff?
So we go from an angry chicken to a reason to smile.
Yeah. Come on out.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Take care.
Who's representing the reason to smile?
Is that land use?
Jeff Pentejo? Not here?
What's the story with this one?
I think we sent this one back to change the angle of it.
And what happened?
Did they resubmit new plans?
Yes, we received revised plans.
Did they
What's,
do what we requested?
He got an email.
We got an email?
I sent him an email that he was on.
Right.
this
Should
is
be here.
for a replacement bulkhead? I didn't
And
look at the,
a dock.
and a floating dock?
So what was
Yeah.
our issue?
So, the floating dock, we have to be careful of here. I don't know how it's, but this backs up to the town marina. And
Yeah.
I know that when we put in the
We had to
the
change the
permitted,
angle.
yeah, the floating dock to the property just to the north, there was problem with the boats that are just across the way.
Yeah, but.
As far
looks
as
like
getting
is the
in and out.
property,
This is the property.
In reality,
this is the property here?
yeah,
This is the
Oh,
property.
oh, it's got an indented
He's
boat
10
slip, so
he's
it's not
10
even gonna.
feet in from
you really
the
don't, you
property
need the
line.
dock. Since he has an indented boat slip. But he was supposed to shorten that up and change the angle, right?
Well, he's 10 feet in from the property line, extended
Yeah.
property line.
Why don't we just put this off until he comes in?
Does it, is Mead and Blue Book, it's not Mead and Blue Book?
I don't really,
The only worry I have is the depth of water on the inside.
on
of the
inside,
floating.
and you can't really go farther out because, he's,
The town slip is right.
if town slips,
Conscious
and there's some big boats on, over there.
All right.
So we just put it off until he
Put
comes.
put it on hold. Maybe we need to take a look at a bigger overview, James. Board
Yeah.
maybe's got to take a look at a bigger aerial shot to see its proximity to the other activities.
Yeah,
Have him come in and let's make a sensible determination on what's best to do here.
Okay.
Okay? Is that fair? Okay.
that's what I want to do.
Okay. All right, so that's on hold. So let's go to trustee Warner.
Yep.
With Kim Lester, 17 Allenson Lane, Hampton Bays, Cole Environmental.
They emailed us and said that they are going to, they want to hold it because we had discussions at the site and
Okay.
we have to change some stuff around.
So that being
That's
said,
in your packet.
okay, so that being said, we go to 86 Foster Avenue
Yep.
LLC with Nelson, Pope, and Voorhees.
Brett Reiner's here, I see.
Okay, let me see. Okay.
Hello,
Sorry.
Brett.
Good morning, everyone.
good morning.
Just tell Mr. Sabella to come on up, don't be shy.
Yes,
Yeah, the applicant, the agent, and the applicant are here.
I just go by Junior.
Okay, Junior,
my father.
state your name for the record, sign in as Junior. How are you?
Good, how are you guys?
Good.
Pretty soon you're gonna have gray hair like him.
I'm sorry?
Pretty soon you're gonna have a lot of gray hair like him.
No, I don't know.
Actually,
I'm
I
not, I'm not
stole
saying
that
that
off a little bit.
because, I got these glasses on, I'm just letting you know. But
So, first, my apologies. I brought a thumb drive with the idea of putting a PowerPoint presentation up for everybody, but James just informed me that we're no longer allowed to use the thumb drive. So I can't email the file, it's too big. So if you would allow me to, I'll try to walk you through it on my laptop.
if you turn that around so the board can see it, and I don't know if Charles has the ability to see that. Charles, can you see his, for the
Maybe-
public's edification?
Maybe Charles just can zoom in on that and put it up there. and we
Turn
can
it, which
watch
way would you like it, Charles?
Toward,
Which way, Charles?
Opposite of what you had.
Oh, right towards this camera?
Got it.
There must be a man in the room up there.
There's a man, yes,
Behind the
exactly.
curtain, yes.
He's a
Yeah.
very important
Very
man, that's why we
important
consulted
man.
him.
Just give me 1 second, Charles, I gotta.
I got a little confused.
he's next door.
Way the public can see, and we can see, and everybody can see.
I understand.
Okay.
All right, so, Charles, can you see that?
Ah, there we go.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So, actually, while I'm doing the PowerPoint presentation, I'm going to just hand out some plans to make it easier for everyone to look at.
It's all stamped, we have stamp copy, we need a stamp
Yeah, we're
copy.
gonna stand a copy of that.
Yeah, we gotta go through the whole process here.
Brent, they just have to go
Do you
to
have to stamp
Lisa.
all of
This
them?
is-
No, just one.
Yeah, I'm just going to
Yeah,
give you
we'll
guys
take-
these,
yeah,
they're all the
And then
same.
just give one for stampage.
Yeah, she's.
Everything now is about stamp things.
Yeah, date and time.
Did you get the
Do you
email?
want one?
Yes, I have.
So you have the update.
Do you want one? Brent, do you
I
have an
have-
extra? Oh, that's great.
Actually, James, can I have that plan?
Thank you.
No, no, because Bill's not here. Oh, you need one. You-
Okay, so
No, I'll look it online.
we were before you in December 2022 to present this initial application for a much-needed marina improvements. This is, sorry, Brant Reiner from Nelson Pope and Voorhees, 70 Maxis Road in Melville. I'm here today with Billy Stabelic, who is an operator, owner of the Ponquag Marine Basin property. We are before you again today with an application to do some much-needed marina improvements, which consist of shoreline stabilization and maintenance dredging, and a small extension of the dock to include some service slips, which is something that's become a much-needed commodity for Billy and his customers. So again, we were here in December of 2022 to present this application to you. We gathered some comments. In the meantime, we've also received comments from the Army Corps and the DEC about the pending applications before them, and we have produced some minor updates to the plan set for clarifications, edifications, just the overall concept of the design remains the same, just some tweaking of things based upon information that's come to light since our last presentation to you. So again, if going through the PowerPoint presentation, this is a much-needed marina improvement project, which consists of maintenance dredging of the marina basin. All the work will be confined to within the property boundaries. There will be no work needed inside of New York State or Trustee direct water bodies. This is a stabilization of the western peninsula. As you can see, it flanks the the basin to the west and separates the basin from Foster's Creek. So this is the peninsula in question. All of the work being contemplated is on the east side of that peninsula, again, completely within the property boundaries of Ponquag Marine. The idea is to stabilize the shoreline because the erosion that has been taking place is putting sediment into the marina basin, causing this much-needed maintenance dredging opportunity. This consists of a bulkhead return, a retaining wall, and a low sill wall, all acting together for what we feel as though is the most appropriate action to stabilize this system. Again, we're also asking for the installation of service slips on the south side of the basin. That would be over here for everyone to see. And as part of this overall project along the western peninsula, we will be creating an intertidal vegetated marsh area to better the ecological system that currently exists. So I'm going to show you some existing site condition photos. Again, it's hard to see without having all of the stuff up on the screen, but we did submit some of these as part of the initial application, and I will submit a copy of the PowerPoint presentation for the trustees to look over afterwards. So again, this is the area that's most important to the actual productivity of the commercial fishing opportunities that Billy does cater to. This is both recreational and commercial in nature. This marina is a much-needed resource for the baymen and also recreational residents of Southampton community.
And the offshore fishermen too.
And the offshore fishermen.
They got to get their maintenance on the vessels. They got to be able to get into a.
It's almost interstate commerce.
Yeah. So this photo is taken of the most northwestern corner of the basin. And you can see here, this is a floating dock that, again, services a commercial fishing vessel, and along it, the shoreline is eroding. We have escarpments that are fairly significant, and as you continue to look down the shoreline, you're looking at low and high tides as best as we could. I shouldn't say that. We have a low tide for sure, and an incoming tide photograph sort of taking at similar angles to give a demonstration as to what the condition looks like. And you can see that there is obvious shoaling due to the eroding shoreline that is here. And let's be very clear here. This peninsula was created when Billy's father built this marina and dug out the boat basin in the 1960s. So you're talking about a wetland system that was recreated based upon a development of a marina, and as part of that development, Mr. Stabelek actually even dredged Foster's Canal and widened it to actually create a navigable body of water where none currently existed. So again, this is not a natural system. This is a system that has changed over time, and what we're asking to do is to maintain it for its functionality as a marina.
So you're trying to take what it evolved into from being like a very narrow type of creek situation to, now restore it back to being, vibrant again, where you're not suffering from such severe erosion and impeding, the ability for navigation and maintenance and, what we generally would see in a maritime community. You're trying to bring it all back to where, it makes sense.
Yeah, we're trying to find a stasis here. A created system that has the ability to function ecologically and for recreational and commercial fishing opportunities, or boating opportunities, I should say. So as we look through the photos, you'll see that there is obvious escarpments where undermining of the bank is obvious. The root structure of the vegetation that's still holding on is literally hanging over a void of material. So without protection of that shoreline, you're going to continue to see that peninsula erode. And over time, there won't be anything there to separate Foster's Creek from the marina basin.
So your plan is going to alleviate that?
Yes.
And enrich the wetlands behind it.
So, and then we have some other photos that as you look to the south, I'm standing on the north side of the peninsula, looking south along the eastern edge of that western peninsula. So the basin's over here, and we're looking south along the shoreline of that peninsula. You can see that there is an intertidal marsh area that wants to be there. And what we're proposing to do is stabilize the system to allow a hardened structure to dredge up to, with a vibrant intertidal marsh leading into a high marsh, leading into an upland seaside vegetated zone. Again, creating an ecological stasis for the system that has been
So
created.
you'll have a low sill type situation where it's getting flooded out and it's all gonna just work, but yet you're not gonna have the negative, erosion effects. You'll be able to get it to thrive from that hardened point up,
Right.
and then not have the continued deterioration and degradation of the peninsula area.
Right. So we're trying to preserve what's there, and what's not there, create what's supposed to be there. So again, this is a twofold project.
Looks like a very good plan.
It's a stabilization with an ecological focus, so that the maintenance dredging that is necessary for this marina can happen over time at a much less frequent basis, taking into consideration only the sediment that's being brought into it from an outside source and not the direct source of the erosion of the peninsula. So again, we have a few more photos that show that erosion, the situation of that bog material that's being exposed, and then, oh, I got ahead of myself. But this last one here is actually the point of the peninsula, and that's the intertidal marsh area that's going to remain completely intact. After the low sill wall is installed, the area will continue to be inundated on its regular tidal cycles, and the intertidal marsh that is there, again, intact, and the high marsh that is adjacent to it, again, intact, untouched. All of this work is going to be accomplished via barge, so as to not track through the fragile vegetation that's there. What's important to note, though, is there's an intertidal area, as you can see here, that's that sand, that clean sand that's there, that's not supposed to be there. That sand is being collected from the outside system, and that's part of the necessary dredging maintenance. But the intertidal marsh that is supposed to be there will be secured with the low sill bulkhead and allowed to be inundated, and allowing that intertidal vegetation to thrive. So we have an unvegetated low sill wall. We have an unvegetated intertidal marsh system that, where we need to and where we can, we will vegetate, and where that shoaling material has been deposited, will be able to be dredged properly to allow safe navigation. And then finally, the last photo I got ahead of here, but this is the other side looking at the extension, the south slips, where we're going to do a slight extension to put those service slips in that Billy needs to be able to let the boats set while he's waiting to maintenance them, because he's explained that there's not many places where people can bring their boats in Hampton Bays to maintain their vessels. Billy's one of those marinas that offers that service, so he needs to be able to keep the boats there while he's ready to service them. So looking at the structural improvements to the project, again, I walked you through this before, but just to clarify, it's a 45-foot return of the existing bulkhead on the north shoreline of the basin. So this bulkhead exists right here. The first 45 foot is a return of that bulkhead to maintain stability of that corner where there's a major washout. I understand that some of you, maybe all of you, have visited the site. You'll see how the water is getting behind that bulkhead, and Billy's losing land, and it's not sustainable for this marina. So again, a 45-foot bulkhead that was actually part of a previous trustee permit from 2015. The trustees had already approved that return, but unfortunately, Billy got caught up in doing the bulkhead return over on the south side of the peninsula, which the trustees had permitted, to keep that washout that was coming from Shinnecock Bay, because this peninsula was gone. Again, the coastal system took over this south peninsula and made Billy have to put in a structure here to keep that storm event, that tidal influence out of the marina basin. So he focused on that. That project has been completed, and in my opinion, has proven successful in doing what it was supposed to do.
It stabilized the inlet that the county dredged for everybody on that canal, basically.
Exactly.
So,
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
and he did allow the deposition material to be placed on his property, dried out. So he did help out the community and the whole, that whole area. So, and I remember working with you after Sandy and,
Through you. Yep. We're there
resilience.
currently.
Yeah. The bulkhead was, shoreline resilience as far as storm surges and stuff like that. So
And
it's,
just to clarify on that, the reason that had to take precedent, that was multiple government agencies really wanted to see that done. And there was a hard timeline on getting that done, set by them. And it was understood that to protect not just us, but the whole community from storm surge, that the most, they kind of guided that being the most appropriate project.
yep.
And I agree with Brant. If you were to go to it now, you would see, I would say, an improved beach for, whoever.
Right.
It's a better area. It's a more viable area. It's a better resource for everybody, allowing also for protection for the people that are behind it, not just us, but the houses on the other side.
Yeah, it's obvious. I mean, in the decade that I've been here, you did the right thing, and it did help out the entire community by, cordoning off a large section of your property that we could utilize so that the, Foster's Creek could be appropriately dredged by the county, which helped out everybody and the environment, and is such a big problem today for other areas where we don't have that ability. It's not very easy to do, and you have the continued shallowing and the continued degradation of water quality because you don't have this activity going on. So I think that it's pretty obvious that you've worked very hard from every aspect of this, and I think you have a good project.
I would like to say we've worked with everybody
You have.
together. I really believe that. We came here in 2013
That's
after
right.
Sandy, or 14, and everybody has worked together for a long time, and that was a joint effort.
That's right.
For the dredging. That was a large lift by you and by us.
Yep.
And it was successful.
Collaboration works.
What happened after to stabilize was a joint effort amongst many people, and it was
Absolutely.
successful. We believe that this is, again, a joint effort that will lead to a successful resolution for the community. It's not just a benefit to us. The realities of where we live is that marinas are no longer considered working marinas. Marinas are,
Recreational.
it's not even that they're recreational. They have not really been able to be kept for really the local community. We're a local marina, and we cater to mostly the local community, whether they're commercial or recreational. And to do that, and to continue to do that, we need to work together to keep that going. You're stewards of the water and the bayfront, and so are we, to a certain extent. And there is pictures in there of the sandy areas. That's what's going to be created partially. Not all of that sand is going to be removed. Some of it is going to be removed as the dredging, but some of it is going to turn, a lot of it, about approximately 1,800 square feet, is going to turn into intertidal marshlands. It's going to grow intertidal marshlands. We recognize the benefit from a storm surge perspective, from an ecological perspective, of intertidal marsh. Anybody who goes down to the bay and watches the tide or wave action roll through as it hits the intertidal marsh, it dissipates. And I hope it grows 6 feet tall.
Excellent wave attenuation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
But there is a limit to it. But we intend to increase intertidal marsh, because that low sill mark is below the current existing intertidal marsh by quite a couple feet. So that'll grow in behind it.
Right, You're checking a lot of boxes here, from the environmental aspects, the intertidal, the wave attenuation, and to something that you touched on that's very important to the trustees, and that's, the preservation of the maritime heritage of our community. And, things have been changing a lot since the time that I've been here, and I've been here for quite some time. But we're all doing a good job working together, as you say,
I
in the
think so.
collaboration of taking into consideration all of these aspects, the start of the food chain, right down to the importance of having the ability to maintain vessels for commercial and recreational and everything that we need. And dealing with the curveballs that Mother Nature throws at us, sometimes all too often. So I think your plan is a good plan.
There's one more thing I quickly want to touch on. There's also comes into an aspect for working marinas of safety of boaters in the area. And I don't know if I'm wording that correctly, but if you were to leave Montauk in a vessel through the ocean, if you can't make it to Fire Island Inlet, which is then a hike into Sayville, the only place that you can either seek safe harbor or be emergency hauled is in Shinnecock Bay, and even in then, for boats of a certain size, is limited to pretty much us and one other marina on that side of the canal. So that's a long stretch from Montauk to Fire Island Inlet, because Mauritius is not navigable to a massive extent.
Yeah.
And which we have emergency hauled the Air National Guard, the Coast Guard themselves, multiple vessels every summer come in for various reasons that they're sinking. Am I going to now say, well, by the way, I need 4 hours to wait because the tide has to come up for me to haul your vessel? So
Well, that's
yeah. And when somebody's dragging people's asset, or they're in some cases they're literally sinking at the dock, we're doing what we can.
That's why we work so hard at this board level, advocating to the county and to the Army Corps the fact that we need to keep our intercoastal waterway dredged properly so that people can once you get in that inlet, you got to be able to get to your facility, get to the other facility, and that's problematic at times. So that's why at this level, people don't realize, and some people maybe do, how much time we spend in the advocacy from every aspect, whether it's getting the permits through the regulatory authorities, as you pointed out, there are many, and the budgeting, so that you can actually have these things done, because it is of great importance, and that's why we spend get as much as we can. We're working on trying to get the southern end of Shinnecock Canal dealt with as well. And yes, obviously, you guys had a great dredge project going on that creek. These things, they have to be maintained properly so you don't let them get to the critical phase where people are having a problem. So, and you have to keep the conversation, and you have to have people, at these other branches that can provide the permitting and the funding to understand the importance and the need, so that there's a plan proactively to always have this thing taken care of.
Maybe in speaking to other things, and I don't want to cut you off, is when you're maintaining, maybe you're taking 2,000 cubic yards of deposit out, but when you're critical mass, now you're trying to find a place for 12,000 cubic yards of material, and that starts to get really problematic.
It is.
Where we addressed the community-based concerns of Foster Creek before we addressed our own. We put the cart in front of the horse, and now we're just saying, well, we have to take care of what's inside of our place.
I know Trustee Welker's got
How
some-
far are you along with other permits?
We're deep into it. We received at least one, if not two, rounds of comments from the DEC. We received similar comments from the Army Corps, and we have responded in kind. The plans that you see in front of you today as a result of those comments. And in my opinion, there was nothing of substantial interest in terms of
Probably waiting for us.
questioning the design.
That may be out of line. As I read the one email from the Army Corps, which gave their comments to go out to comments, didn't the Army Corps say their preliminary perspective on it was that there was not an issue.
So I think what Billy's getting at is there was a public notice put out by
To
the Army
adjoining
Corps.
property owners, yes.
Yeah,
So you
to
have-
adjoining property
is it
owners
60
and
days
to,
or something like
and
that?
to the involved agencies.
Where are you at in that 60
Fish fish and wildlife, those kind of
Yeah.
things.
We
yeah.
received comments from National Marine Fisheries, which we've addressed. They wanted some very minor clarifications on the plans, weep holes in the bulkhead to ensure
Make sure
that
it
water.
thrives.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
yep.
makes sense.
Yep.
Everything that we had received
And the
was
retainer
very appropriate.
Reasonable and-
And reasonable, and
That's
we
good.
factored them into the plans. It did not change the design, the concept, with the creation of the tidal wetlands.
Right, we've requested weep holes put into things at times so that
Yeah, so
that
water can
area
drain.
could thrive and, you know, get the proper.
Yeah.
I know Trustee
So-
Welker, go ahead.
I do. So thank you for being here today and for running a family-owned marina that caters to local people, because you're a rare breed at this
Appreciate
point.
that.
For sure. And thank you for the acknowledgement of the increase in the intertidal marsh, given a low sill bulkhead. My concern is, after a site visit the other day and looking at these plans and considering it, this board has taken a stance that there will be no, or there has been no new net increase in bulkheads. This would be that. So my question to you is, in light of that, it's approximately 500 linear feet of new bulkhead between the retaining wall and the low sill bulkhead. Did you consider greener alternatives to this, nature-based alternatives? And I realize that when you're coming in, I see that the travel lift is all the way in the back corner here, so any vessel, larger or smaller, has to make 3 basically right turns
That's
to get in to this space. So I'm considering the prop wash that goes along with that, especially with larger boats. And I'm just wondering if you had something that was slightly softer rather than bulkhead, if that might not attenuate the prop wash even better than bulkhead.
So, just so everybody's aware, Billy approached me about this in the winter time of 2022. And we studied this from an engineering perspective, recognizing exactly what you just talked about. I've been before this board for going on 19 years. I understand your policies, and where we can, we look to do the most hybrid or soft solution appropriate. I've demonstrated that to you on other projects, you know, using all kinds of materials. This particular project required a stabilization mechanism that promoted or allowed for maintenance dredging. If you were at the site, you would see that the slumping of the bank is created a slope. And some of these images that you'll see, again, I'm sorry I don't have the ability to put this up on the screen, but you're talking about material, it's really hard to see here, but you're talking about material that in this shaded area right here is deposited from an erosion from the shoreline. So you see what 6 foot of depth looks like. That's what's supposed to be in this marina. For Billy to be able to service those commercial boats, those federally operated boats from the Coast Guard or whoever it may be, he needs to maintain a 6 foot draft here to get those boats in and out of the marina. In order to do that, you have to put a wall down into a sediment stable, down into the basin to a depth that would allow you to dredge and continue to have a stabilized system or structure that isn't going to bow or move. A green solution, such as core logs or other types of biomaterials, it would be problematic only because they don't allow that stabilization. You'd have to excavate down so far in order to create a base for that material to stabilize, to keep it from falling into the basin. The only possible solution for Billy to be able to continue to have a maintenance dredging operation here to service those boats and allow those boats to make that turn into that tight corridor as you're talking about, with that prop dredging that has to happen with the thrust that's required to move that vessel. We studied this and we recognize that the only solution to that with the dredging requirement is the vertical structure. It provides the engineering stability that's necessary for us to certify a set of plans that the trustees now requires. You know, they require engineer stamp plans, and allows Billy the wherewithal to understand that the functionality and future of this marina is going to be dependent on the structures that are here. So he knows that when he dredges this, that it's going to stay for an extended period of time. You know, that wall would have a lifespan of 40 to 50 years easily. So we know that that system will stay intact, as designed, as engineered for that period of time. So
In the wetland, will keep on growing behind it, in the marsh.
absolutely. So the
Which
wall.
you don't have there before.
So the wall is vertical. It allows the material up here to stay where it is. It allows the basin down here with its water that goes up and down to maintain its depth for navigability. And to Bill's point, this intertidal marsh that's behind it will absorb that wave energy that's coming up over it and allow whatever pollutants are in the water to be filtered out through it. Without that intertidal connection there, what you'd be talking about is some kind of revetment. You know, you're talking about stones that would require a certain slope, and then you're talking about digging into the bank to be able to stabilize that system, to put the rocks in place, and you're still worried about the dredging operation that's going on next to it.
Even if you dug into the bank with stones, that bank is liquid. And you do dredging in front of it, it's just gonna walk its way down slowly.
Fall.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're looking at a bulkhead here that you're gonna penetrate probably 10 feet into the bottom.
At least.
At least 10 feet, so you're gonna completely make that wall, that's the low sill bulkhead, a wall that doesn't allow any of that material to fall back into the, into the dredged area, maintaining a depth, and at the same time allowing the water to have a wetlands that is gonna be expanded and to flourish behind there. I mean, the one low sill bulkhead that I dealt with when I was first on the board was the Ponquag Manor, or the old Allen's Acres. There was a parking lot that was right up to that bulkhead. The bulkhead became dysfunctional. The DEC wouldn't allow them to put a traditional bulkhead in there. The Board of Trustees and consultants at the time came up with this low sill bulkhead concept. I think it was one of the first ones, if not the first one, that was done in the state. And you go down to that site now, and there's no longer a parking lot. It's 50 feet of flourishing either low marsh or high marsh and wetlands. So it does work, and they did a dredging in front of it, a substantial dredging, and nothing has moved there. And it's been a net gain of a wetland. I'm looking at this project from an environmental aspect, that if we can take an area that has been disturbed by man and make it a net gain of a wetlands, I think it's a positive for the environment and for the whole community down there. Because I do remember this area, I do remember it as a kid, I do remember when there was basically a jetty that was made out of tires that completely fell apart, ended up into the canal, and the county would go down there and dredge.
Jam it in the cutter head.
Yeah.
So there were things in the past that were tried that didn't work. And I know this low sill bulkhead does work, because I've personally seen it work in this area, so.
I agree with Ed 100% with the low sill wall. Only thing I would add is probably an osprey nest at the end of that point.
Can I just put it on a different side of the area? I don't have a problem with the osprey nest.
Yeah, obviously, it's gotta work
yeah.
for them.
I actually would put it more to the
South
bay
side.
side. Yeah,
Okay.
the south side on the bay.
Okay. So if you
There
put
would
on-
probably be less interference
Yeah,
with whatever
boats.
they're doing
Okay.
if it was more to the
You have to
bay
keep it away
side.
from
We actually,
trees.
me and Brent walked.
Yeah. Okay.
I wasn't aware of, I hadn't thought about that
Yeah.
when, and Brent brought it up to me. We walked that area. We did identify
A good
what-
spot.
a good
Okay.
spot. We did.
Because they would love the new wetland where you're gonna
Great
make.
Yeah,
spot.
yeah.
So-
We identified what we think would be a
Yeah.
good And we're happy to work with you guys on that too.
You got something else, Trustee Welker?
Yep. So, just 2 seconds.
Yeah, I just, I didn't want to get off the topic of the wetlands. We'll go back to that, so.
Okay,
please,
it's
please.
the same.
Okay.
So, if we are going to increase new bulkheading, if we are going to do that, is there any opportunity for increased mitigation then that could go along with this project in addition to the intertidal wetlands behind the low sill bulkhead? What I'm looking at is where you bulkheaded previously, where the return was done previously on the bay side. Is there opportunity there for re-veg or something along those lines, perhaps?
We have targeted that for a future dune replenishment, re-veg. Actually, that was originally to be part of
The original project.
The original
Yes.
project, due to obviously where a whole lot of factors that was, essentially postponed to a later date.
Well, I remember it as we needed to establish that return bulkhead that was there to stabilize the beach in order to do this project, because I remember it was pretty liquid, the beach, and we were losing all of that material.
Yeah, there
into-
was really nothing
so-
there.
So
The
it's-
only thing that was holding it back was the remaining riprap. If
Yeah.
that riprap wasn't there, that sand would have.
So now that the beach has been basically
Stabilized.
shored up and stabilized, we can look to do that in the future, because you are gonna have a dredging project. I don't know what the state's philosophy is about taking material and try to reconstitute a wetlands in front of a bulkhead in tidal water. That's a really questionable.
I will say that after that project was completed, we did remove approximately 500 yards or more of riprap as that stabilized. So we have been, if you were to look at pictures of that in 2012 to now, you can even walk, like that first, I don't know, what would you say, 100 feet from that return is pristine, clean sand now, where it was constant tires, concrete.
Mess.
We have been removing the concrete off of there at a pretty substantial rate, and allowing sand to then, it's walkable now. You couldn't walk it.
It's a
One of our
beach.
main concerns
nice
then
beach.
was, you had concrete with rebar,
People get hurt.
and I had said, I can't, wasn't that I didn't want to allow, but there was literally no pass and repass because you had concrete there with rebar, and it's like, I have to, at some point, protect, the people too, kids playing, whatever. That's no longer really the case. That is a full pass repass beach, through nature. We didn't deposit any sand there. We just allowed it to stabilize.
Right.
And so I think that's where you see sometimes the benefits of stabilization.
So Brant, what do you see as the next step here?
Just want to touch back on Trustee Welker's point regarding the mitigation. The project in and of itself, as designed, is mitigation. I think the trustees should take into consideration that what we're offering to do here is not just protect, but stabilize at least 890 square feet of intertidal vegetation and revegetate it. Right now, it's just trying to be sand and bog. So without this project, and if Billy just came into you and said, hey, I need to dredge. This is a maintenance dredging request, but the trustees give out all the time, especially for operating marinas. Army Corps, DEC, and trustees would be hard pressed to not give him a maintenance dredging permit. If he asked for that for this area and did the dredging project down to 6 feet, whatever intertidal marsh that is there, which is very minimal, will be gone. So again, I ask the trustees to collectively look at this as a mitigation project in and of itself, because without stabilizing the shoreline as we're proposing to do, you won't be able to benefit from that intertidal wetland area. So what I would ask to Trustee Horowitz's point is to take a look at the PowerPoint presentation that I'll send to you, somehow get it to you guys, it's too big to email. Take a look at the updated plans, and as part of the updated plans, the last sheet you'll see is a full mitigation presentation. And recognize that this is a vibrant local marina that needs some assistance from the trustees in a collaborative state to be able to operate with this much-needed maintenance dredging operation. So I have the ability to answer more questions. I feel like the record is pretty full, and I would ask you guys to consider advancing this, because right now, time is of the essence. And as one of the trustees mentioned, perhaps the DEC or the Army Corps are waiting for you to issue a permit. I don't necessarily know that that's the case, but if in fact that is the case, we would ask you to act quickly.
Yeah, would help.
It wouldn't hurt us.
No.
Trustee Warner?
I think it's a good project, I think, because when I first went down there, I realized that this is a functioning marina and that the boats are getting bigger and bigger. At this point, if we don't allow them to put this do the whole project and just allow them to do the dredging, in 2 years, you're gonna come back for another dredging permit, and we're just gonna cut away on that peninsula and that wetland, which we really can't say no to dredging because it increases water circulation. So we're gonna be cutting away, and there'll be a point where eventually we're not gonna be able to have a net gain of a wetland. We're just gonna have further and further losses of a wetland. So I think now is the time to act and to, like I said, I personally have dealt with other low sill bulkheads. I think it's a good mechanism to help shore up dredged canals and to maintain the integrity of the area and to preserve what was there. Because a lot of these areas, when you dredge any type of canal and there's no structure there, it just sloughs down over time. And that's exactly what's gonna happen here.
It's a functioning marina, regardless of the sizes of the boats and what direction they're going, and I think that it needs to maintain being a functioning marina. And I think that you've done the best job that you could in a very dynamic situation with building wetland, and protecting the maritime heritage of the community in a very tough dynamic situation. So I appreciate that. I think you did a good job.
Yeah, I just had one question. Has the DEC weighed in on any secret issues?
I'm sorry? No.
Any determinations? Because it looks like we don't see that often, the trustees don't see that often, a new bulkhead of this size.
Well, let's be realistic here.
It's really a wall.
It's a low sill bulkhead. And you know what, we've allowed, people want to cut boat slips into their property along various areas, and they had to put in new bulkheads. So it's not like you're taking, an area of the northern side of Dune Road and eliminating a tremendous wetland and putting a bulkhead there. This is a very unique type of a situation.
And years ago, we gave South Shore a low soil bulkhead, low soil wall, and there was nothing there beforehand in that one basin.
Right, and you did put a low sill.
Up in Moneybrook.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was before you did, then you did Allen Acres maybe a year later.
Yep.
This is being done for the preservation of the wetland and the intertidal around it, and making that balance to maintain the functionality and the ability to maintain. And, when you recognize that you're up against these different dynamics, as I would say, in an area like this, where you can't just let it all go, because you'll, as you point out, you'll lose the peninsula, you'll lose the wetland, you're actually creating, you're preserving, and you're maintaining what's integral to the maritime heritage of this community, and it's a very difficult balancing act. And it does require a collaboration among many regulatory authorities and people to be able to do that. And I think this is the demonstration of that coming together for the greater good.
Yeah, but just so the trustees are aware, it could be deemed a type 1 secret action, substantial alteration, because it's a new bulkhead. I just want that to be part of the calculus.
I don't agree.
I think you're looking at this a little bit
too much into it.
Yeah, this is not like you're filling wetlands, and this is not. I think you're looking at this a little bit differently than it is actually occurring here. When you actually look at the big picture of the net gain to wetlands and preservation of wetlands based on the area, like I said, I could understand if you were filling and decimating wetlands to create a hardened structure, and then everything beyond it was gonna be something. Here, you're in a situation where you're trying to preserve it so that it will thrive and not continue to be decimated by sea level rise and the consistent, effects of the fetch and the surge and the waves that roll through there at the same time. I think it's a totally different scenario, so it's not what you're,
This is originally a man-made environment on a privately owned underwater land that Stabelecs own. It's not doing a project on the trustee, it's not them asking to do a project on the trustee's property. It's on their property, and they've already taken an action to build this marina, and now they're coming to us to make sure that the marina stays,
Right.
functions, and to ensure the wetlands that are on
and
the
you're doing this,
perimeter of it.
you're doing this in a manner where you're preserving and building wetland. People come to us, as I said, to put indented boat slips into their property that connect to a waterway that we regulate, and they end up putting new bulkheads in those areas. But go ahead, you want to say something?
And just so, just to put out there, when my father built the marina, fully permitted by the trustees, the Army Corps, and the New York State DEC, fully permitted.
Right.
Every time he's done anything there, it has been fully permitted. This is inside our property line, substantially. This is inside our marina. If you just were to look at that, where it says Dug Creek, that would be, we're not affecting our neighbor, we're not affecting, there is no, hey, the guy down the line is going to be,
Right.
this is really to Brant's point. If I was to dredge, and the way they want sloping to dredging, we're just further going into wetlands to get servicing of boats.
Well, and in substantial storm events, with the wave action that goes on there, there's just going to be further degradation of the...
Right.
Okay, which you want to try and eliminate that so you can continue to have that thriving wetland, and that's what this is going to help.
I think we all had an eye-opener after Sandy, and a lot of what we're trying to do is mitigation.
Did you suffer...
In some way, shape, or form, we're trying to mitigate these events.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Within the last week or so, have you suffered a substantially high tide?
Yeah.
Okay. So the reality in this, and December 23rd, did you recognize that we've had some substantial?
That was...
Okay, so, right?
Right.
So the reality in the situation is that our community, our area is suffering from these events, even outside of Irene and Sandy.
Right,
We're
correct.
suffering from these events. And, there has to be some form of adaptation to maintain the functionality of these events, taking into consideration the wetland aspects, which we are all doing here, and the fact that this is an occurrence that's happening more frequently. So,
Actually, go back to Gloria before he was even thinking about working at a marina. I was there, and a lot of boats came up that way for safe harbor. Almost all the people from my place went up there, and we actually stood there during the storm and saw the Penny's motel roof blow off.
Yeah.
And so that's how it goes, the fog goes back.
I think everybody, maybe not this gentleman here, but, I mean, we are one of the biggest safe harbor during massive storm events. I mean, we take as many as we can put in. I don't even know some of these people sometimes. They come begging, oh my God, a hurricane's bearing down on us. Please, can you, and we give harborage at our own liability, because we don't know how bad the storm is gonna be, and we kind of felt like we dodged a bullet during Irene or Sandy, where, the marina was able to withstand it at a substantial cost to the quote-unquote infrastructure of it. But the people in the community, we didn't have a single boat damaged during Irene or Sandy.
other facilities had
Substantial
surge,
damage.
Substantial damage. They had vessels that were hauled for safe harbor, and they still ended up coming off their jack stands.
We hope that never occurs. We don't want to see that, and we're trying, though.
Right.
There's always that in the back of our mind. How do we better protect the people in the community and ourselves?
I
for those types of instances.
I think this record is quite full, but guys, you want to say something?
Yeah, just quickly. So to that point, you had made the comment that as part of your original plan with the work that was done with the return on the south side, that there was plan for a dune and renourishment or a revegetation there. Could you look to that going forward then? Because I realize that's an additional expense, but as part of, not necessarily this project, but as part of moving forward, because that doesn't only protect you, but that protects everyone that's landward of you. And my other question is, given that there is a natural shoreline on both sides of this man-made peninsula at this point, where is the work to be done? Is it being done from land or is it being done from the water? Because if you have equipment on the peninsula, will that not affect the creek side as well and
Yeah.
cause sloughing there?
Hold on, again.
Okay.
So I think I should have, if I didn't, made the point that we are doing all the work from water.
Okay.
I talked to Billy. Billy's a hands-on marina owner. He does most of the work himself. He installed that beautiful bulkhead return himself, him and his father, his brother. So he gets it. You know, the understanding is that we're looking to preserve and create the wetland system, so we're not going to interrupt it where we can. So the work is intended to be done from a barge, from the water.
Okay.
Billy has recognized that. To the point regarding the southerly peninsula along Shinnecock Bay, I'll have to study the conditions of those permits because there was an understanding in the design of that project that there was probably some kind of restoration activity that would need to occur. I'll speak to Billy more about what that means and perhaps we can talk about implementing that. There was some question that Billy and I had about that, and it's, putting sand at that location doesn't invite sand to move around that bulkhead return more quickly, creating a need for the county to dredge the channel. Again.
But if it's stabilized with vegetation, that's my point, then it would be.
Again, we'll just have to study it.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it's not.
So you're going to study it. We got another, we got a pretty good agenda. We got a pretty good discussion going on here. So what is, where are you at here?
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, that's really, what's your suggestion?
Ed has my full support, so to move it forward, I'm happy how it sits now, and they can address the other problem later, like Ann was talking. But I think that, Ed, I think it should be moving forward.
I think it's a good project, and, like I said, we started out with inner tubes for a jetty that was a failure. So I'm hoping that this is going to be the opposite and a success. And I do bring a little bit of, or we do bring a little bit of knowledge at a low sill bulkhead on the same body of water that has been very successful.
So let me ask the question again. What is it that you think the next steps are that's going to be helpful?
Okay. We have a set of fully engineered plans, which is a requirement from the trustees to move this into a decision at the next hearing. We're ready to, actually, these were intended to be submitted today, but I had an issue with the printing aspect of it. So they will be submitted this week. They are in fully engineered form, will be stamped, ready for approval. I would ask that the board move this forward for a decision and consider conditions. One of the conditions being the osprey pole. Tell us to install an osprey pole. Billy and I will work together to find the most appropriate location as we discuss. If the trustees want, before we leave today, for us to show those on the updated plans, I can do that. Billy and I can leave here and we'll make a decision and we'll put it on the set of updated plans so the trustees know that what they are approving has an osprey pole noted on it. But they can do it as a condition. Second condition would be whether or not the trustees want us to look at that southerly peninsula. Do you want us to take action on that as part of this permit, which could hinder Billy's ability to get the work done quickly, but we'll talk about it. You do have other permits in place that may have already addressed that need, so you could always just refer to those permits in the conditions of this approval and say that the conditions from the previously approved set of plans will need to be revisited by your analyst, Mr. Duryea, and ourselves to make sure that that's in compliance.
Right. On that subject, Mr. Duryea, do you have any commentary relative to this as our senior environmental analyst?
The low sill bulkhead is consistent with trustees, what they've done in the past in areas like this, especially with a private marine basin that is not adjacent to any public land other than the other side of the peninsula. It's going to help stop that wave action from the boat traffic inside the peninsula and help protect the wetland vegetation behind it and stabilize the channel so they can proceed to dredge. I don't see any issues with the low sill. You guys have done it in a marina, I think in West Hampton, you allowed, it was a Gina Rigdon applied for it, and I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was
South
recent.
Shore.
You're right, and that was a new low sill bulkhead. That was been an alternative for the trustees to go to. That way it protects the wetlands behind the locations and stabilizes the shoreline. Like Brant said, the return is previously approved, and again, that return is within the marine basin of the privately dubbed basin marina. So it has no effect on any other properties in this location or that area, and it's already been previously approved by the trustees board relatively recently.
Okay, Trustee Warner, your recommendation?
I think we should
Advance?
advance it, please.
Okay. I'm good with that.
I'm good with it.
All right.
If we could look at the special conditions, that'd be great.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Special conditions advance.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Sorry, real quick, the plans, stamp plans need to get to us.
Yep.
And now, per our procedures right now.
Correct.
They'll go on for the next work session to view
Correct.
those
Yep.
stamp plans.
Okay.
Clear?
Correct.
Clear?
And with those stamp plans, we will give you a revised product description.
Clear.
For clarity.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brant.
Thank you, everyone.
Trustee Wilker, 361 Dune Road.
Yep, 361 Dune Road, Conic Environmental. How are you, Jonathan?
Hello. Sorry for the long wait.
Yeah, I hope this one's quicker, huh?
Yeah. You got pizza coming.
So this is a project to install snow fencing on the beach. Jonathan, if you want to
Sure.
Just give a quick
Since our
description.
initial application, we had the survey updated by Squires and Holden. So we submitted new plans based on that new topography. We're proposing 2 rows of snow fencing seaward of the existing snow fencing along on the slope of the primary dune, and then 1 row back on the secondary dune. It's landward of the toe of dune, so it meets Blue Book. Property owners, they've owned this property for 40 years now. They're just looking to keep building up the dune and protect their property, and they're eager to get this installed before plover season in April.
So the question had been, that had created a bit of a concern, was the toe of the dune, and that has now been established on the survey, and I think I'm fine with moving forward.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Yes.
being here.
Yeah, of course.
Well, he said it was probably good. Love it when a plan comes
And
together.
then finally, 80 Harbor Drive
Yes, advance.
Surfside Environmental, I see Daphne's here.
with the owner, I believe, as well.
Hello. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm all right.
Hello.
I'm here today, Daphne Vaughn, Surfside Environmental Planning. I'm here with John Tabone, the landowner.
Okay. Everybody states their name for the record, signs in.
And then just do a description of the scope of work, please, Daphne. Or do you want me to while you're signing in? Want me just?
I'm done.
Okay.
So,
So
the
Saginaw
property
Cove.
is 80 Harbor Drive. It's in the Bay Point subdivision on the end, in that peninsula area. We are proposing 64 feet of fixed dock with through-flow decking with a 14-foot ramp to a 6 by 20 float.
Okay.
Going straight out into Sag Harbor Cove, starting at a depth of about 2.5 feet. Where's the application? We did an extension on the plans of the lot lines into the waterway to show that our float as drawn would be 13.9 feet off of the extended property boundaries in conformance with what typically the trustees seek of a minimum of 10 feet.
Other regulatory authorities require a greater distance. Do other regulatory authorities require a greater distance to the adjoining property line?
Setbacks. Army Corps is 15 feet.
Is it 15?
I'm almost thinking we should probably amend to match that to avoid any, that's a
Not-
blue.
Maybe not on this.
Not on this, but I mean, this is a blue book, just to avoid, well, no, but to that point, if
Yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah.
15, and we're,
We
then
should
you gotta
be.
go to
Yeah.
15, so what are we doing with 10?
If
you can't, you know what I mean? I'm just
There's a lot-
thinking,
there's a lot
common
of
sense,
projects
that's
that
all.
would not fly at 15, I'm gonna tell you right now.
But then again, they wouldn't get approval from the other regulatory authorities, so
Yeah.
where are you at?
Well, I think we should make sure that, I believe that's what it was.
I think it is, I see other people shaking their head, but whatever, go ahead, go ahead.
It is
Yeah.
15.
It is, okay, so there you go, there you go, but go ahead.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't think that ever came up in any of my other applications in the past.
Well, no, I'm just,
Maybe
you know,
I did
I
meet that.
think we've noticed that over time, we've been doing 10, and then we have people coming in for modifications to move it, because Army Corps then finally, after a year, approves it as long as you move it to
Right.
15. And then it's like, then you have to come in for a modification for us, so we've definitely been seeing it more often.
Okay.
They hold to that, so I think it might be a good idea for the trustees, if that's what they want to do, is to maybe amend the blue book to do
But that's-
15 as well,
yeah.
to avoid the applicants from going back and forth with the Army Corps.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the cases of the properties, just if it's a thing, you know. I'm gonna make a note of that myself.
So there are a couple things here that were addressed either in conversations or emails with Daphne and the homeowner as well. We have an advisory letter from the Conservation Board. I will read the The Conservation Board has reviewed the 80 Harbor Drive plan prepared by Surfside Environmental Planning dated November 16th, 2022. Recommends that the location of the proposed dock be shifted to the east to take advantage of the area already disturbed by the existing stone footpath to the water. Shifting the dock will minimize disturbance to wetlands and will prevent removal and/or damage to the existing marsh grasses and groundsel along the shoreline. So, in looking at this property, we noticed that there was a path to the water and that the siting of the proposed dock is, I think Mr. Powell has it, the siting of the proposed dock was to the east of this, so we recommended
To the
that it be
west.
brought, excuse me, to the west of it, so we recommended that the dock be brought back so that it was in line with the path. However,
Let me
Yes,
see this letter.
which letter?
Also,
Conboard
the
letter,
dock
yeah.
is
Oh,
longer than.
oh,
7
thank you.
than the pier line.
Yes, so the pier line length in this area was extended after rigorous public hearing last year to 75 feet. This does exceed that. This project exceeds that.
I believe the dock goes to 79 feet from mean high water as drawn. And, okay, so as far as the pathway, I did submit a photo to Ann. My client actually brought some better photos than my photo. where he actually measured the width of the pathway, it's only 2 feet wide. So as far as disturbance, no matter how you slice it, you would be disturbing wetlands to install the dock. When we sited the dock, I had my client analyze where he wanted to place it based on the water depth, but also based upon what was going to be functional for his needs. And I had indicated to him to make sure that there would be no need to clear any groundsel. And so this location is supposed to be between 2 groundsel bushes. So there should be no clearing of groundsel vegetation for the placement of the structure as drawn. The intent is that. It would be basically within the Spartina patens and minimal fringe of Spartina alterniflora that's there. The intent would also be to try to avoid putting a piling within the Spartina alterniflora, obviously. This path is so narrow that if the trustees see fit, my client has no issue with revegetating it with the Spartina patens, as to offset the location that we're proposing. Also, as far as the extension of the 75-foot pier line, my client prefers to have the float go straight out because he has a 35-foot vessel. So using the straight length this way would have the engines of the vessel in the deeper water, which would be preferred. You can address that.
Yeah, just that it's just helpful. First of all, thanks for having me, and I really appreciate you doing this. And I want you to know that our family definitely values clean water and protecting wetlands, and we've lived out here for 26 years full-time, so we do value that. Yeah, so when we're docking with the engine depth, the propellers at 2.5 feet, we're hitting bottom, so we have to raise the engines. And with wind and currents, it can be sometimes dangerous trying to park the boat. So with the engines further out, we don't have to raise the engines, we can park the boat more safely, as opposed to having the dock turn the other way.
We did look at the other dock lengths in the area, and not all of them are at 75 feet. Some of them are at 79 or 85. Southern Environmental.
They were put in previous to our dock pier line. They're old.
When is the cutoff time for that date? I'm just curious. One of them was more recent, but I'm not sure what.
We just redid a pier line in this area because it was 65 feet.
Okay.
So I mean.
you're saying somebody violated our pier line recently, is what you're saying?
No, I
I
don't think so.
have an aerial of all of the
Yeah, Suffolk
lengths.
Environmental had done like a study, I
Yes,
guess.
yes.
Yeah.
So some of those docks were put in the 80s and the 90s prior to the
Okay.
trustees initiating a pier line in this area.
Okay.
I
'Cause I know-
believe the original pier line was 50 feet,
Mhm.
then it was lengthened to 65 feet, and this area was done to 75 feet, which would, you would acquire, your adequate depth of water if the dock was, an L shape. So that, I'm looking at this, I would just recommend an L-shaped dock, and then it would be within the pier line. And then we wouldn't need to, go back and forth. But I do have one question for you, and you said you've been here for 26 years. You do realize this, there are quite a few large rocks out there.
Yes.
And siting your dock, you should be very cautious. I don't know if you walk that area or not.
I
I'm
have.
very familiar with it.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Maybe have-
there are a few larger rocks.
Yes.
We rented there last summer, so we spent the whole last 2
Okay.
summers there.
Yeah.
You don't want to bend up those props you were talking about.
Yeah.
Or the hull.
No,
Yeah.
I know there are where those rocks are. My neighbor comes in, so I can see where he navigates into his
Yes.
dock. Some of these other docks have been put in fairly recently, one within I think 4 years and one within 2 years, that are dock length on 81 Harbor, just as a reference, 89 feet from average high water. 82 Harbor, which is also very recent, 80 feet from average high water.
What was the permit that was granted for them? We don't have that in front of us.
James, you have any information on this? Or? What do you want to do with it?
I mean,
When,
Does this help
go
at
ahead,
all?
go ahead.
Certificates of
When
compliance?
James and I looked at it,
yeah.
that's for yours?
This is for theirs, for these two docks that I was just referring to. What they were, what
So you have,
actually
you have
went
copies of their permits?
in.
What is that?
Certificate of compliance for that, for those.
Okay.
That's for, well, this is the aerial of all the other docks. Those docks.
Modification.
And this is also for
This was the
82
approved
Harbor.
plan for 82 Harbor, which scales out at 79 feet in an L shape. This was, I did this plan, actually, my office.
Which one is that?
82, which is next door,
Next to him to the west.
to the west.
To the west,
Yes.
yes, 82 Harbor.
Which we did already. This one here?
No, I already asked for that.
Yeah, upside down. Sorry.
It's the one that's 2.9 on my plan.
82 Harbor, right here, yeah.
The one, so the one that's to the north of it,
East, it's like
Yeah.
east.
to eat,
Right here, Ann.
yeah, the one next door, the adjacent property,
I'm trying to-
Next door.
yeah.
This is 81 Harbor. Do you want to hold this and go over it with James?
That's what I
Is that
was
what you
gonna
wanna
say.
do?
Yeah,
I think so.
I see, I have a lot of pieces of paper here,
Yeah, why don't you,
and I'm trying to make heads or tails of it. I don't want to make a.
because
I don't
you've
think
just
we
given
should-
us some more
I don't
information here.
think we should be making rash decisions
Agreed.
at the meeting here, so.
We have a couple things to look at
Yes,
and discuss.
yeah.
We
And,
didn't cite the dock over the existing staircase because he'd like to maintain the existing staircase, so he can, it's a 4-foot concrete bulkhead, basically. So he would like to be able to have that continued access, so he can maintain the wall and just be able to get down there on foot, which would be pretty customary, and it's been there. This was rebuilt after Hurricane Sandy by the prior
Yeah, but
owner.
that's above the high tide mark, so that'd be
Yeah.
Marty's jurisdiction.
And you're not opposed to a part of a revegetation project if you are,
No, that's
Yeah.
fine.
right?
Happy to do that.
Because that was a concern, disturbing, right?
Yeah,
I'm
So
happy
you're not
to do
opposed to that?
Yeah. There would be I think, a net gain of more vegetation after the dock gets put in, I'd re-veg that, right? That
Yeah,
walkway?
so like I said, this is the photo that I emailed.
yeah.
And he had shown in his measurement, it's a 2-foot wide pathway,
Right.
so it's not very big.
I got you. So let trustee Welker give her a little time to take this new information,
Yeah.
do an analysis, take this all into consideration, and then you want to put this on for, what do you want to do?
We'll be in touch, but probably in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be fair.
2 weeks, okay.
Yep.
That's the next meeting, okay.
Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We have
142.
142C, right?
142C, Newtown LLC, 142C, Newtown Lane, Michael Demack.
That's
was a
just stamp
determination-
plan. That's just stamp plans.
Stamp
About the
plans.
final stamp plans.
So-
Were the stamp plans received, and are they in order? You want to come up and approach the
James?
board? You could come here and state your name, sign in, and we don't want
I found the discussion very educational.
to... You did? Good.
I
A
do
lot
a
of
lot of,
information
I do a lot of DEC work at any given time. I've got a dozen applications with the docks and bulkheads and everything else.
State your name, sign in.
I would say something, though, that DEC does require 25% at low tide from side to side. You may want to consider that.
25%.
Yes, sir.
25% of what?
Low tide to low tide
Oh, okay.
across the channel. And I always design at 25% low. It may line up with your high tide. I don't
Yeah.
know. But they always require through flow as a matter of course.
Well, that's what we have been doing for years here.
So
They followed our lead on that.
where are we at on his stamp plans? It's-
We're all set, he's.
He's all set?
submitted it. Yeah, we're all good.
All right,
Okay.
so you're good. So this is going to advance to resolution.
Correct.
Yes.
All right,
And same here with the next, Reiner Schoenbeck, 545 Sagaponic Road, Village of Sagaponic, and Consultants has submitted stamp plans.
okay.
All right.
So you're in good shape. The next one's in good shape. You've done a.
You do a very interesting job here. I mean, I deal with Shelter Island and South Hilton Riverhead. Everyone does it a little bit differently, but you have an interesting approach.
Well, we try. We try to be fair and,
I think-
you know, to everybody.
Yeah, the Marina one was interesting. I'm doing a 5,500-yard dredge for Marina.
Okay.
With 1,500 linear feet of hybrid low sill that I
We can
designed.
adjourn this meeting.
Okay, so they're doing low sill over there also, I mean.
Hybrid low sill.
Text me back.
What I did basically is that in order to protect the shoreline, I raised it up to the level of the shoreline and cut the bottoms out every 6 feet to allow the water to come in up to the high tide line, but gently to replenish the high tide. DEC didn't like that, so I moved it to the medium high tide line. But for their channel, I kept it at the low.
Okay.
But it's a little different. That situation was different. It was an old brickyard. They had dug it out.
Oh, I'm
to make
familiar with
bricks.
that over there. The brickyard.
Goldsmith, where I
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I've cut a new channel into the one with Port of Egypt,
Okay.
to give them a new channel into that one.
Really? Wow.
But everyone's a little different, though. You have to,
Right.
each marina
A
is.
lot of bricks up there, right?
Pardon, sir?
A lot of bricks.
Get back on my agenda.
Yeah.
80 feet of brick down the bottom over there.
There's a lot of,
You want to try to put in some sheathing?
no, it's impossible over there.
Yeah.
We're lucky on the South Shore, we have sand.
So you're,
Appreciate being here.
you're in good shape.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good
So you're
day.
good. So the 11 o'clock discussion, obviously, we're gonna dispense with that and reserve our discussion for executive session for
Question, how
personnel.
long does it take to get the permit? James?
Well, it's gonna be on for the next
It's gotta
meeting.
be resolved.
It has to get approved
Yeah,
first.
It's gonna be in resolution form at the
2
next
weeks.
2 weeks.
You'll be contacted once it's.
Within the next 3 to 4 weeks?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 You'll be
Have a
fine.
great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're advancing the 545 second.
Yeah.
We're
Yes, please.
advancing both of those
Okay.
for trustees
Sorry.
Warner and trustee
I thought-
Welker, both advancing.
I thought you heard me say that.
Dispensing with the discussion that was listed for 11 a.m., because obviously that's long past, and we will reserve, we should adjourn this meeting and reserve our executive session for perhaps
This afternoon.
this afternoon. Okay, so that being said,
I'll
it's been a
second-
productive
I'll
meeting.
second
Make
that.
the motion, seconded by trustee Warner, all in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned. Have a nice